Hi, my name is Sarah Nepper. I have 4 children, Gabe, Shelby, Jonah, and Anna, and a husband, of course, named Brian. And through our journey together as a family, we have been through a lot of things, and God has brought us through those. And in the midst of it, He's taught me so much about prayer. So I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. When I was a young girl, I would hear people pray and wonder. It was almost like magic to me, the way that they would close their eyes and hold hands, and just with the power of their voice, they would call on God, but I didn't really understand it until I got much older. So I got married when I was 22 to Jeremy, and within a few years of our marriage, he began using drugs on a regular basis. It was a very tough season in both of our lives. We moved a lot, and eventually he ended up leaving us when our youngest baby, our third, was about 3 months old. And during that time, I would pray to God, but the action was mine. I asked Him for help, but then I wouldn't rely on Him. I would work through my own strength. And I got really worn out doing that for 3 years. It was just always on the go, almost being in survival mode for those years. And I took the kids to church and was around very loving Christian friends, but I still wouldn't trust God with my life. I decided that it was on my shoulders, that I was partial to blame for what happened with my ex-husband, and so I took it upon myself and ended up suffering for that greatly. So I got married to Brian in 2012, and 6 weeks later he lost his job. So now he had this ready-made family, and I just lost it. I didn't really believe that I could carry our family anymore. The burden on my shoulders was so heavy, and I was crying out to God, but I didn't see Him in what He was doing. And that was very stressful for me. I got a teaching job, and within 3 months I was totally exhausted, and I told Brian that I wanted to commit suicide. And God was nowhere to be found at that point. I didn't think He was. He was there, but He wasn't there to me. And so I spent 5 days in a psychiatric ward, and that is where God started doing the heart work in me. When I left there, I had such a yearning for Him, a yearning to meet other women who were strong in their faith, and I began to pray every day. Just small prayers. Lord, show me what I'm supposed to do today. Lord, I'm tired. What can I do today? How am I going to wake up in the morning? And very slowly, He started opening my eyes to all the things He had done in my life, to the things that He was doing. And although we didn't know where we were headed, because Brian still didn't have a job, He was directing our path. Eventually our family moved to Columbus, and we met some amazing people at our church. A new friend, Rachel, that I met ended up being a blogger that I was reading during that spring after my hospital stay, and we realized we lived 1.5 miles apart. And I was just so ecstatic, and I couldn't believe that God had given me that. It was such a gift that He would allow that to happen. And Rachel became my mentor, my friend. She was my sounding board. God gave her to me during a sweet time of learning and understanding who He is and who He was while all the suffering was going on. And the first day we got together, by the time it was over, we were able to finish each other's sentences, which was just, we knew it was a match made in heaven, a friendship. So over the 3 years that we lived in Columbus, she was there for me. I started a blog online and wrote about my struggles and ended up writing prayers and just being able to see God unfold this whole healing process just strengthened my prayer life. But I wouldn't pray out loud, which I know so many people are afraid to do because they don't think they have the words or the correct speaking voice, or they're worried about what they're going to say. And so one night at Rachel's, I went to a prayer group and everyone prayed out loud. And I remember sitting there, I was the last person, and my palms were actually sweating because I was so nervous. And I listened to all of their prayers, and finally it got to me, and Rachel said, "Sarah, do you have a prayer?" And I basically repeated what everyone else said because I didn't have that confidence in myself yet. And so as time went on, I became brave, and I would ask God, please give me the words so I can pray out loud for people and for myself and for my family. And it got to the point where I would walk into church and I would see another woman and the Holy Spirit would tell me, go pray for her. And I would just walk up in the middle of everybody and I would ask if I could pray, if anything was going on. And most of the ladies looked really surprised when I would do that, but then tears would come to their eyes and they would say, yes, thank you. I've been struggling with, my family or what I'm supposed to do in my life, or I'm struggling with depression. And it was just a time for me to really get close to the Holy Spirit and to understand how prayer can bring two souls together. And when God is in the midst, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. And so there's one other instance where God really just blew me away through prayer and for my family. It's when my third child was hit by a car. He was 6 at the time, and he was trying to cross a really busy street in front of our house. And I was sitting on the couch, and the Holy Spirit told me, get up and watch Jonah. Move now. And so I got up and I looked out the window and I watched him for a few seconds look left and right, and then he didn't look left, and the car that was coming hit him with full force. She wasn't able to stop. And so as I watched his body fly about 30 feet through the air and land in a ditch, I knew he was dead. He was lifeless. And in that moment I just wanted to get to him, and I started praying, God, please don't take Jonah from us. Please don't take Jonah. And I was yelling at my husband, and he ran out there and to make sure that Jonah was alive. And when I got out to the scene, the driver was hysterical. She was screaming and crying, and the Holy Spirit told me again, hold her, talk to her, comfort her. And so I didn't even go to Jonah. I went to her and I grabbed her so tight and I just said, it's okay. I saw it. It was just an accident. It's okay. It's okay. And from that moment on, my prayer was just, God, you are good and you are going to solve this however you choose to, and I believe in you and I trust you. The ambulance came and took him. Brian went with him, and I was there. A lot of people were watching me to see what I was going to do. The firemen were kind of following me around, and finally I got to the hospital and I was so calm. And I think one of the biggest impacts prayer has made on me is through my son, because when I arrived I went straight to the x-ray room, and Jonah was there with, I think 7 techs were in there. Taking photos of his leg, and they said, your mom's here, Jonah. Your mom's here. You've been asking about her. And he was very groggy, and they rolled him over to me, and I asked how he was. He responded that he was in a lot of pain, and he asked if I would sing to him. So I sang a little song, and he smiled and went back to take some more pictures. And when they rolled him back, I said, would you like me to sing again? And he said, no, I want you to pray over me. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit just gave me so much strength to pray for my child who asked that question of me. And as I prayed, all of the techs in the room started crying. It was just such a special time for Jonah to be living out his belief and to be using me as that source. We were able to speak volumes to the people in that room without even saying anything toward them. They saw that this 6-year-old was asking for prayer and believing in it. And it was just, the Holy Spirit was everywhere in that hospital with us. In every room, whenever a visitor came, they would pray over Jonah. And my friend Rachel, who I spoke about before, she came and she shared our story on her Facebook page and on her blog, and there were thousands of people around the world that were praying for him, and our church was praying, and it just gave me a whole nother level of seeing God's grace and his mercy and how the Holy Spirit can change you from the inside out. And my friends would ask me when they would come, how are you so calm? And I said, it's the Holy Spirit. It's just keeping that posture of thankfulness and of trust. And I wasn't worried. I mean, of course I was worried about the surgery, if everything would go well, but I didn't have that desperation that I believe I would have if my prayer life was not so ingrained in me. And we had lots of people praying over him and praying over Brian and I and just our other kids. And it just taught me a lot about spreading God's love to other people and letting people witness you in those raw moments be so humble and faithful, because we can't see, we have to believe. But for others who can watch our behavior, those doctors and ER nurses and all the people that came around us could see our faith. And it was so important. It was such important work. And I didn't even realize it at that time. I was just so focused on Jonah. So, you know, we've had some other things happen as life, you know, gives us roller coasters and highs and lows, and my prayer life is secure. It's something that I treasure, that I go to every day, even through hard times. And I love to pray over other people out loud. It's such a, God has given us such a tool to use to connect to other women. And it doesn't matter if you have the fancy words or the exact right thing to say. If you're giving your heart to another person through prayer, it can change their lives. It means that they're not alone, that they know you care about them and that Jesus cares about them. And the more you pray for others, the more God changes you as well. And he has certainly changed me through my prayer life and through being able to give that to other people. It's one of the best gifts to have. Intercessory prayer is one of my spiritual gifts, but to be able to give that away, and that's what Jesus calls us to do. And it's a great feeling to see a woman pray and walk away knowing that she now has those words that we're thinking about and that were said over her, and God can make an impact with that. With or without the prayer, he makes an impact, but the prayer makes it all that more special. So, there's my prayer life in a nutshell, and I hope that as you grow in your faith, that you will allow God to teach you how to pray over other people, how to pray to him when you don't have the words, to rely on the Holy Spirit to give you the words to say, because he already knows. And through our groaning and our desperation, the Holy Spirit speaks to God for us. And practice makes perfect. The more you get in touch with God and the more you pray, it's going to feel natural to you. You just have to take the chance.